Good morning, Thrivers. Welcome. Good afternoon if you're over on the East Coast. My name is Carly Giroux, and I'm one of the Thriver Society certified coaches, as well as a certified pricing specialist. I'm out here in Sacramento, California, and I am so excited to be here with you all today for this wonderful webinar. We're going to do a live pricing Q&A session. If you have not already gotten the chance to watch the webinar, Making the Pricing Calculator Work for You, it is in your Summit Hub. I would love for you to go check that out. I answer some of the most commonly asked questions in that. But today is an opportunity for us to kind of go through, and I'm going to answer some questions that were pre-submitted. We're going to answer some questions live. I see you all beautiful people in the chat here. Please feel free to drop questions into here. You can drop it into the Q&A, whatever it works best for you. Sometimes the Q&A is a little bit easier to see. So if you have a burning question that you want to make sure that I answer, please drop it in there. But we're going to just kind of dive in today. And I thought I would start out with a couple of pre-submitted questions. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for this very first one, so we can take a look. I know that the calculator, there's been a ton of questions in the Facebook group. So I feel like this is great because a lot of these questions I've seen asked multiple times. So we will get a chance to kind of go through them together. All right. You are so welcome, Meta. All right. Thank you, Natalie. Good morning. Good morning, Serena. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. This is just my demo calculator, but I wanted to answer this first question, which was from Susie. She said, one question I have is under additional services, how will it know what variations to use? So I'm actually going to go over here to look at this as I read this question so you guys can see what I'm talking about. All right. And actually, you know what? Bear with me because mine is showing the old version of the calculator, which is not going to be very helpful for you. So hang tight while I get that pulled up for you. So let's go ahead and pull up. I'm actually going to use Meta's because we looked at hers yesterday. We're going to take a look here. So the additional services area is going to be really great for somebody who is, let's see, you can see that there. Perfect. Always fun tech things. Okay, additional offerings right here. So this is going to be a great place to put additional things that are not included in this a la carte menu. So if you offer something besides haircuts, besides styling, regular kind of color services, this would be a place to put it here. So this could perhaps be bridal work. This could be services that you offer as an esthetician or a nail artist, which we'll touch on a little bit if you have kind of a different business besides just hair. So we have actually removed the timing option here. So what you're going to do here is you're just going to write the name. So let's say it's going to be bridal hair style. Okay, hold on. You know what? Just kidding. This is still showing the timing. So I lied. This is really exciting. Okay, so I thought the calculator had adjusted to not showing the time, but what this is doing is it's just showing you a straight timing. So this is just like an hourly rate if you're looking at a 60-minute service. So her question was, how do I incorporate the cost of color? Or let's say you're an esthetician and you wanted to include the cost of your facial product. What you would do is just go right back into your info section here, scroll down a little bit here. And when you're typing in, you would kind of attach whatever the cost per application is of the product that you're using. So if you were, let's say, an esthetician and we're doing facials, and usually a typical cost of a facial was $20 to you, you would put that here, and then you would just add that to the total cost of whatever additional offering you're offering here, if that makes sense. If these were, maybe a bridal service, you would figure out how much do I spend on a typical bridal service between hairspray, bobby pins, all of those other things, and you would just tack that cost onto this cost here. So this is essentially just an hourly rate. So if you went down to 30 minutes, you can see that gets cut in half. So nothing super fancy here. It's basically just going to give you an idea of the timing. All right, let's go ahead and jump to a different question. I'm going to keep my calculator up because we know we're just going to end up spending a bunch of time on here. Let's see. And again, if you are just hopping into the webinar, feel free, you can drop your questions over into the chat, you can drop them into the Q&A. I love to see lots of movement in the chat. I can't see any of your beautiful faces. I just see you in the chat. So feel free to kind of put anything that you want in there as questions come up for you. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this question. Was about figuring out, I think it was from Christina. What if you fall in between being basic pricing or extensive service specialist? And just for a little refresher, so basic pricing is going to be for somebody who is doing shorter services, kind of more traditional salon services, isn't necessarily super focused and specialized. You're still offering kind of a wide variety on your menu. Versus extensive service specialist, this is going to be great for somebody who is very niche down and specialized, and your services tend to take quite a bit longer. And the reason why this matters is because when we change between these two, it's going to significantly change the amount of clients that you could take per month. I'm going to show you an example. So right now, basic cut and color pricing, if you scroll down, you could max out at 203 clients per month. So if you're taking a high volume of clients, this would be an option for you. But if I change over to the extensive service specialist, you will notice I only have the option to go to 72 clients. So if you found yourself selecting extensive service specialist because you feel like, well, I'm super niche down, I'm specialized, but you're taking like 150, 200 clients, that's something to consider. The other thing is how many hours a week you're available. So if you're available 41 hours a week, what you'll notice is as an extensive service specialist, now you can go up to 160, right? But it is going to limit the amount of clients that you can take per month. So she's saying that she takes 50-50, it kind of changes per week. So 50-50 touch-up haircut or partial foils. And then there are some weeks where she's doing really detailed blonding sessions. I would probably say that you would want to land within more of the basic cut and color pricing. But here's the thing to note, you guys, it is just a tool, right? This is just a tool to use. If you feel like you do basic pricing and you come over to look at your prices over here, and they're just not lining up, you're already way over what the calculator's showing, then I might take a look at extensive service specialists and see if that feels more in line with what you're already charging and what your business is looking like. So it is, again, a tool. There's no right or wrong answer. It's really just about choosing what kind of makes the most sense for you. Now, what you'll notice too, I just want to show you this because this sometimes happens. Oh, I fixed it. Okay, good. Sometimes if you don't go in and adjust any of these numbers here, you'll see like a little red flag. And then you come over here and it will show a bunch of red. So if you're having any like technical issues with the calculator, always making sure that you come over here to the info area and ensure that everything is looking very nice. All right, we are going to hop into another question. And this one is one of my favorites because I am a bridal hair team owner. And so bridal hair and makeup. And so this question was about a bridal stylist using the calculator. So this comes from Emma. How many of you guys do bridal? If you want to drop that into the chat, I would love to see, just so I can get a good feel for the room that I'm speaking to. And drop that in there. All right. Perfect. I don't know if we have any bridal going on, huh? I'm not sure. Okay, well, we're going to do it anyway in case we have people on the recording. So I want to jump into the calculator is not necessarily built specifically for bridal, but I think that this could apply not only to bridal, but let's say you do something really specialized, like you do hair loss, you do particular types of extensions that kind of don't fit into the mold of the extension calculator, things like that. This would be a way to use the calculator. So a couple of options that we can do here. I would personally fill this out based on your numbers for your bridal business. So I would almost do this like a second time. Like you could make a copy. If you go to file and then make a copy, you can actually change these. Ashley says, I don't do bridal, but I do focus on hair loss. Awesome. Cool. So hopefully this might help you a little bit. So what I might do is adjust these numbers. So let's say that the annual income for the brides that I'm trying to target is more like 150K. versus maybe my behind the chair business is 126,000. I'm making these numbers up, right? But you would want to do the research to really find this out. How many hours available are you per week? I would bring this way the heck down so that you're showing that you have limited hours available for these services. So we're trying to kind of show like there's a demand on your time. I would definitely choose extensive service specialist. And again, I'm speaking specifically to bridal, but I think this could really apply to these other specialties. And then how many guests do you see per month? Now, this one's a little bit tricky, but I might say that you do, 11 or 12. We'll play around with the numbers. We'll play around with like a more realistic number and then kind of adjusting that a little bit higher. How many weeks are you booked out? I would select rolling booking. Rolling booking, you guys, was an option that we added to the calculator a couple months ago in order to account for people who do not pre-book. So I want to touch on this real quick too, because I think this can be confusing. So you can select how many weeks out you are booked, and previously 14 plus was the maximum that you could be booked out. But rolling booking gives you the option, like for example, for me, I open my books on the first of the month for the next month. And so I'm booking really like 7 or 8 weeks at a time. If that is you, this would be an option for you. And it's actually going to give you a higher suggested price than if you were booked out 14 plus weeks. So it's kind of the max, the Rolls Royce of this. How many weeks are you booked out? So for bridal, I would say rolling booking. And then how many referral requests are you receiving? I mean, I would be honest with this. If you have a really strong bridal business and you're getting those referrals, I would put this in here. And then you could adjust all of these numbers if you wanted to account for product cost for sure. Now you could come over to a couple different areas. I would suggest doing the hourly. So just a little refresher for the calculator too, this services offered tab is going to be for a la carte. So anything that you're offering a la carte, you're going to be coming in, adjusting the timing and looking at these numbers. If you're not offering a la carte, and you're doing hourly or session-based or package-based pricing, then you're going to live over here in this hourly tab. Otherwise, you'll get confused being over in the services offered tab. So let's take a look here at what we come up with. We have this hourly rate of $141. We have a session rate of $282. And again, these are going to be pretty high session rate and hourly rates based on those numbers that I popped into there. But this is so much higher because this is accounting for any additional product, right? When you're creating a package or a session, you're always going to go much higher than what the hourly rate would be so that you can really account for, someone coming in and having massive amounts of hair and you're using additional product. But I think for bridal, I would consider really going with this session rate. And the reason for that is because you are actually taking the time out of your day. Let's say you have work on a Saturday. You're taking the time that you could be making money in the salon and maybe working off site. There's likely travel involved in this. So, and it's a very specialized service, right? And it can be very stressful as someone who does bridal herself. So I would look at offering this as your bridal price. I know some people that are doing, for example, so for me, I'm actually offering something really close to this as my bridal hair price. And then this is actually pretty close to my bridesmaid price. So you could do like the session rate for your bride and your, bridesmaid as this one. You could do everyone at this hourly rate. You could do everyone at the session rate. There's a couple of different ways to go about doing it, but I would probably not use this area. I think I've seen people do, I know I did this earlier. I've seen people do bridal hairstyling down here, which is fine. But it's not going to take into account any product costs. Like you're gonna have to add that on top of it. So I think coming in here and going based off of the session rate is gonna be a little more accurate. For some of you, you might take this and add 20% on top of it and make that your bridal price. I've seen that work really well too. So a couple different ways that we can do bridal pricing. Now, if you have a salon where you have different stylists at different levels, you could go back through here and maybe you say, okay, well, this person's only taking this many clients and they're only getting, fewer guest requests and they're only booked out 10 weeks. You could adjust these numbers and start to see this number kind of go down. And that's how you could kind of set your levels if you had people at different levels in terms of your bridal stylists. And then I would make sure that you always charge travel on top of that. So this is just kind of for services, but travel is definitely something that you want to consider on top of that. And I could go on and on all day, but I know we don't have many bridal stylists in here, and it's a whole separate fun conversation that maybe we can have later. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go through another question here, which comes from Amanda. Amanda had said, I would love a deeper dive on how the extension tab works. How many of you do extensions? Just so I can see how many people I've got in here. Let me know. All right, so Ashley does. Yay. I know. There are a lot of thrivers doing extensions, right? It is an awesome business. So when you're doing your extensions, the first thing that we want to do, awesome. Z, cute to meet you. Okay. So for your extensions on the info page, we want to make sure that all of this is filled out. If you have already gone in and done your original calculator info, which means like you went to the thriving style or the scaling stylist pricing method, you filled out the basic cut and color pricing, you got your calculator, you would want to go back in and fill out the extension calculator portion, or you can actually just come in here and you can type in your own numbers here. This is showing 3 different extension methods. So I'm going to put in here tape-ins. And I go over this in the webinar kind of a little more in depth, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But I want to touch on a few things here. So this is the cost of the hair to you. So for 16 inches, I'm going to make this up. Let's say it was $100. And $150 and $200. And let's say those are the 3 different lengths that I offer. And this is, again, the cost to me. And then sales tax, we obviously want to include, I think this is our sales tax right now, something close to that. And then this is kind of one of the trickiest parts, number of pieces or wefts per pack or bundle. I'm going to put 1 because if my client is purchasing 18-inch tape-in extensions, they are purchasing 1 package, the whole thing. I'm not like picking that apart and having them buy individual pieces of it. If that was the case, if you, let's say, bought a package that had like 3 wefts in it and your client was only purchasing 1 of those, then you would change this to 3. It's how many pieces are in that package that you would be selling kind of separately to clients. So I'm only going to have this 1, and then we're going to pop over here to our extensions tab, and you can see that you're able to select your extension length. You're able to tell the calculator how many wefts or pieces are required. Now, because I only bought 1 package, you saw that originally it was 6. Whoa, look how high that client rate is. So you want to make sure that this is correct, that it's only 1. This is now what you would charge the client. I've marked up the hair by 100%, but you can also mark it up by 50. You can do whatever you like here. This is kind of more of like a keystone markup. So you buy it for 150, you sell it to them for 300. And that's the cost for the client for just the hair. Now, underneath here is the extension installation and your maintenance rates. What's really cool is there were some updates to the calculator done recently to make this a little bit easier, I think. So time needed for installation and blending. What's nice is, let's say you have the client who only takes 30 minutes versus a client that takes 2 hours to install. You can adjust this per client and see what that total is going to be for them. And then this right here is time needed for prepping extensions. So if you are doing color or blow dries or anything else, you're going to be putting that time in there. And so this is going to show you the basic installation rate. If you are charging more than that, that's fine. If that's maybe, you're working with an extension brand that has a suggested cost or suggested price for clients to pay, then that's totally fine. But this is kind of the minimum you should be charging. And it's based off of the time that you took to prep and install the extensions, right? If you come over and you look at the hourly rate, and you compare it to how many hours you are working, this is really going to be pretty much in line with that. So This right here, these two options are going to be if you are doing color on top of that. So if you were rooting or toning the extensions or doing both, this first one's going to be for both. And the second one is going to be for either or. So making sure that we're charging appropriately for color. Someone had asked if you do color on top of that on their natural hair, like you're doing a highlight or you're doing a root touch up, that's totally fine. You would want to charge kind of separately for that. Or you could create a whole package for everything put all together, but you would want to make sure that you definitely incorporate the cost of doing their color, their natural color, that's not incorporated into this. Removal or move up rates, this is going to be based on the time that it takes you. If you wanted to pop a little bit extra on top of that for beads or, whatever else you use for that maintenance, you're absolutely welcome to do that. But this is going to be straight hourly. If you go back and you recolor extensions or you need to prep them in some way, I would add on, I would really kind of work more off of this rate right here, this installation rate. So a couple of different ways that you can do it. If none of that works for you, I have also seen it work where there are many extension artists using a straight hourly rate or a session rate. I had a stylist recently who chose to do a session rate and incorporate a really cute little goodie bag. And so obviously this is much higher than just doing it straight hourly, but it gave her the flexibility of adding in that little baggie incorporated into the cost. And it was just this like beautifully laid out package that she had for her guest. And I felt like that was just really slick and looked really, really good. All right. I want to just double check here. All right. If you guys have any questions, you can feel free. Again, you can put them into the chat. If you just come into the room, you can also put them into the Q&A. If you have a burning question, that's a great place too. And I will make sure that I get to you. All right. I want to go through the next question here that I have from the pre-submitted ones. Okay. So this is a great question. I'm priced higher. This is from Lauren. I'm priced higher than the pricing calculator and still receiving new guest requests. Is this anybody in the room that feels the same way? You're priced higher than what the calculator is telling you, but you're still getting guest requests. Perfect. Philomena, you're in that position. Okay. I am wondering at what point should I raise my prices and by how much since I'm already priced higher? So this is a multi-answer question. My first thought is, obviously, we want to make sure that that we have everything in the calculator correct, because sometimes, it's a tool and it can be a little bit tricky, right, to navigate. So we want to make sure that as you're going through here, that you are selecting all of the right things in here, that the annual income is correct, that your hours are correct, and then really making sure that you've updated how many referral requests, how many weeks booked out you are, all of those things. The other thing is that the calculator is not a stagnant tool, right? It's not frozen in time. This is a working, moving piece that you can continue to update over time. So what I would suggest is every 3 to 4 months-ish, especially if you've done a price increase, go back in there and make sure that these numbers are really correct. We sometimes will go a lot off of we feel like things have changed or we feel like things haven't changed, but really go through and make sure you've run the numbers and that you are updating this, because as you update, how many referral requests you're getting, if that starts to blow up for you or you're booked out more or you cut down your schedule, all of those changes are going to affect the suggested price and increase that price up. So what I'm hearing from you is from Lauren here is that she's priced higher than the calculator, but clearly something's working because she's getting a lot of new guest requests. She's getting people in the chair, which means that her perceived value is there, right? People really see the value in the services that she has. So I don't think that you need to lower your prices to match what the calculator says. I would just really ensure, are you retaining those clients really well? That's something to really check. Is your base retention, is your new guest retention super on point? If it is, that's fantastic. And I would just leave things the way that they are. I know she's asking because she's wanting to do another price increase. the markers that I would want to see in order for her to really go through with that are those factors of raising your price, those 8 factors, right? So is your base client retention 90%? Do you have at least 30, but hopefully closer to 50% new client retention? Are you seeing at least 3 new guest requests per month? Is that, is it very consistent, or does it sometimes dip off? Do you have any gaps in your schedule, or are you truly booked out? And I think she had said she's booked out 8 weeks in another message that she sent. So that's looking really good. I would say if all those factors are there, that you could confidently do a price increase. I would probably keep it more like 10 to 15%, maximum of 20%. Britt really coaches to never really going over a 20% increase all at once, just because it can be a little bit scary for guests, unless you're truly trying to like massively cut down your clientele if you're in that position of just being so swarmed by clients. So something under 20%. So I think, again, the calculator should almost all the time, you guys, almost all the time, what I find is there's something going on within the calculator that we need to adjust a little bit. I would also make sure that you're selecting extensive service specialist versus basic pricing. I would make sure, again, that this is really updated, because what these factors are showing everyone is the market, but also this is your demand. So how many guests are you seeing? How many weeks are you booked out? How many referral requests? That is showing, is there a demand on your time? How big is it? And that's going to directly relate to your suggested prices here. The other thing that you could consider, and I don't know, Lauren, it didn't say if you were a la carte versus hourly or session rate, but you could consider, if you're doing a la carte, you could consider doing more of a session rate pricing. I would kind of compare the 2 different prices between, the services offered tab and the hourly, and just see, is there a massive difference? Does it make sense to maybe move more into packages? And then my last thought with this is, because I see this happening a lot, and I just saw someone post in the Facebook group about this, about just feeling like so bogged down with clients, which, listen, is a good problem to have, right? I know there's maybe some of you in the room that are like, too many clients, that's like the dream, but it can feel really stressful when you get to that point, and you are just working endlessly, and you raise your prices and like nobody will leave. They're like little barnacles to you. You are probably at a point, many of you, if you're in that position, where you are ready to scale. And what can happen is, if you just continue to do like a $10 price increase every few months and don't change anything else, nothing will change for you. That's the truth. You'll end up nobody will leave. You may have like 1 or 2, but people are going to be like, well, I love her, I'm not going to leave for a $10 difference. So you'll just continue to get more and more busy and exhausted. So there needs to be some sort of structural change to your business in order to really scale. And that might look like adjusting your schedule. It might look like a more massive price increase. For some people that ends up working if that's the right position for them. It also might be just getting more niched down. And that's really what we work on when you move into the scaling stylist method. Many of you may be there, where you're really figuring out like, what is your methodology, what is it exactly that you want to focus on, so that you can really bless and release those clients that maybe don't fit into that. And you can really narrow down and focus on the exact services you want to provide and charge a premium for those services. So if you're at that point where you've just been doing these little baby increases and you're like, something's not working, this is a situation where I think you're at the point where we really need to look at the scaling stylist pricing method. We need to look at some structural changes. So I hope that is helpful for those of you that feel a little bit like you're drowning. If you're not in that position and you're like, listen, I'm just trying to get butts in my seat, and I am I want to get to the point where I'm really able to increase these up, but I'm still down at the 0 to 3. That's totally okay. You're in the point where you really want to build up that funnel. You really want to lean into the marketing funnel, make sure your website is on point, make sure your social looks amazing. Your target market and branding is on point. I think all of that is going to help to really ensure that you are starting to get a nice influx of clients. And then again, check the calculator every 3 to 4 months and see, are there changes to this and can we look at an increase? But I think Yeah, you will get there. Philomena said, let me see, if 75% of my services are cuts, would I be considered a cut specialist? Ooh, this is a good question. I had 99 services in 6 weeks. Wow, 75 of them are cuts. That is a lot of cuts. Yeah, that's amazing. Let me ask you, Philomena, you could put it in the chat. Do you want to be a cut specialist? Is that where you're going with your niche or your specialty? Remind me, because I think we talked about it before. I'll give her a second. I love it. I love it, but okay, tell me more. This happens, right? And I'm going to kind of talk while she's typing in here, but this happens where you start getting like an influx of a certain type of service and you're good at it. But what do we know that as? Can anyone say what zone is that in when you are really great at something, but it does not light you up? Okay, I've cornered myself here because I had a team and I gave my colors away. Gotcha. Okay, you've been giving colors away versus cuts. Interesting. Could you give cuts away, or had you considered giving cuts away? To go back to it, so your zone of excellence, we'll start with competence. Your zone of competence is where you are you're good at it, right? It's not something you excel in, but like you do a good job with it. And a lot of people kind of stay in that realm for a long time, if not forever, right? Where you're like, I'm good at cuts and colors, cool. And you don't do a lot of advanced education. You kind of stay in that lane. When you get to that zone of excellence, what can happen is you are really great at cuts. So this might be the case for Philomena, but you're really great at them and you post them and people just flock to you. And they're like, yes, I love getting a cut from Philomena. She's amazing, but it just does not light you up. Once you get into your zone of genius, that's where you find the thing that you are really amazing at that comes naturally, but it also lights you up. So it might just be that it's, if you feel like you're stuck sort of in that zone of excellence, it may be that you just have not yet found, or you're just not quite doing yet what you are, what's in your zone of genius. My clients don't want to, the cut clients don't want to go to your other people. Yeah, this is tricky. I think that you have to do a little bit of like the internal work, which is always the hardest part, right? The mental work. I always say pricing and services and all of this, everything in our industry is all mental. It's like 99% mental and emotional. So I think you have to decide, do you want to do cuts? Do you want to focus in that? I really do love cuts. Okay. And I love Natalie says, you're singing my story, Philomena. Thanks for asking this. Yeah. I mean, I think you have to decide, like, do I want to go all in? And do I want that to be the thing that I am known for and be a cut specialist? In which case I would go all in, and all your posts are about cuts and your website is like the #1 cut specialist in wherever you're at. But lean in hard to that. If you are like, well, I like cuts, but I want to do a lot more color, then we need to shift a little bit your focus in your marketing funnel. That's really where that's going to come into play. Now, are you charging? I would love to know, if you want to type in the chat, are you charging like a premium rate for those cuts, or do you feel like you're undercharging for those? That would be a big question, because for a lot of stylists, and I'm going to speak kind of generally, because I think a lot of stylists right now are kind of going through this, like, I kind of don't want to do cuts, or I kind of want to specialize in cuts. It's one or the other, right? And I think that if cuts do not light you up and you want to take them, but you just don't want a huge amount of them, it might be a particular service that you increase quite a bit. So I've shared this with maybe some of you in the room, but I last year raised my prices on my cuts to $100. I went from like $65 to $100 in one increase. And it was a huge increase, but the point was to kind of put a stop to having too many cuts. And now I just don't take those new, I'm a curly hair specialist, but I don't take non-curly cuts other than my few people that are still in there. I still have people that would be willing to pay the 100, but you just have to decide, like, do you want to take those cuts, or is it not lighting you up? I'm in San Francisco. You're close to me. I'm in Sacramento. We're right by each other. I charge $132 for 60 minutes. That feels low to me, honestly, Philomena. I would love to see, do you have your calculator completed by chance? Let me know. I'm going to hold on. We're going to put you on the spot. I hope that's okay, Philomena, but I just want to take a look at your calculator. Let's see what it's saying to charge. Okay, I'm gonna open this up and share. Okay, so let's take a look over here. Let me pull the chat back up so I can see you. Okay, she said, I don't think it's premium. There's plenty of people in SF charging more. I mean, absolutely. And for those of you that are outside the market, I think most people know San Francisco, it's just expensive, right? And the average annual income is pretty high. Does this look correct, Philomena? I just want to make sure I'm going off of the current numbers. This is something you filled out pretty recently. So she's at working 17 to 24 hours, 126,000 is the annual income. And here's her demands. Okay, I'm going to go off of the assumption that it's correct. You let me know. Are you offering a la carte? Let me know if that's, or if you're doing hourly or some other thing. Let me see. Okay, so for her, she's doing a la carte. Okay, for haircut with style, you have 90 minutes selected. But you think it's more like 60 usually? Let me know. I'm going to put here, let me see what 60 minutes does. That is really low. Okay, let me boost this up to 90 minutes. Hold on. Let me go back in here to include the 15-minute checkout and cleanup. Okay, perfect. Let me see. Ooh, this is something I'm going to get right back to this, Philomena, but I want to touch on this because this comes up a lot. Britt talks about the margin for magic, like that 15 minutes that you add on to the appointment, particularly for, I mean, new guests, but really any guest, I think is nice to have that margin for magic. And somebody had asked me in Signature, if you should charge for that 15 minutes. And my thought is yes. I think you should charge for the time that you have your client in the chair. And so if you are always taking an additional 15 minutes, like if it's 90 minutes for the service, but you book out an extra 15 minutes on the tail end of it, but you're working with your client and you're taking photos, you're doing a styling lesson, you're talking about product, I would incorporate that 15 minutes into your pricing. That's my personal opinion of the day. Okay, so let's take a look at, I just want to make sure that everything on here feels correct. Okay, this is good. Let me just see. Okay, 4 to 6 requests, 8 to 9 weeks booked out. How many guests? I'm just curious if I adjust this. I'm going to change this to rolling booking real quick. Actually, I'm not. What did you just say? You said 5 to 6 to 7. I'm going to change this to extensive service specialist. Let's see what that does. So you're seeing 24 to 29 guests per month. So we have to kind of adjust this. I'm going to change it maybe to 25 to 28. Okay, let's go over here. Okay, so see how that popped that up to 126. What are you charging right now? 132. Okay, you're pretty dang close. And what is the hourly rate? Yeah, actually, it's showing that's correct, Philomena. I would double check a couple of things. I would double check this annual income, make sure that that's correct. It seems a little bit low, but depending on where you're at in San Francisco and who you're trying to target. And then I would also take a look at, are you booked out 6 to 7-ish weeks, or do you really offer more of a rolling booking, like not pre-booking? That would be something to look at, because it'd be interesting to see if I change this to rolling booking. You do pre-book. Okay. Yeah, this gets you up closer to 165. So, I mean, again, it's a tool. You can play around with it. I would say you're probably pretty close to where you need to be at right now. So what you could do is, if you said, well, I don't want to offer as many cuts, I want to make it a little more challenging to see me for cuts, and I want to start really leaning into color, what I would do first is I would really lean into your marketing funnel to focus on that I am a color specialist who also does cuts, if that's the route that you want to go in, and really start to see at least 3 new guest requests per month for color. Because if you are continuing to if you focus on the marketing funnel and you're still getting just cut requests, and we, jack up the price of haircuts really high, that's going to be a little bit concerning. I'm worried about your clientele not being able to sustain. But if you can really focus your marketing into, like, I do both cuts and colors, and really focus on color, get those 3 new guest requests per month, and that's, for maybe a month or 2, then I think you could look at raising the price of your haircut by really kind of however much you want to. I would probably at 132, it looks like I would probably max that out at like 160 based on if I change this to rolling booking. But I think you could do that. If that doesn't sound good to you and you're like, I kind of like where I'm at, then I would just keep this at extensive service specialist and not necessarily do a price increase at this present moment with your haircuts. How does that resonate for you? Let me know. Super helpful. Good. I'm glad. Okay, good. All right. Let me go ahead and take another look. I'm just looking this through to see here. Again, if anyone has popped in here, excuse me, since we started, please feel free to drop questions into the chat. I will also be checking the Q&A as well. Okay, let me see. I'm going to answer another kind of pre-submitted question here. Okay, this one said, this is from Christina. She said, I just had a price increase in October to get my prices in line with the calculator. I'm not quite there yet. I'm booked out 1 to 2 weeks, and I'm not sure if I should raise them again to get closer to where I need to be, or do I need to wait? I know Britt said to hold off for a bit, so I have. My color prices, I think, are on point, but it's my cut blow dries that are behind. Really, I haven't been charging for blow dries. I know. How do I go about this? Thanks so much. This is a super cute question, Christina. So there are another couple of things I want to touch on within this one question. So there is often this question of like, well, the calculator says that I should be charging these prices and I'm not charging enough yet. So should I just charge the suggested price here? But I want to just remind you guys, this says suggested price for a reason. I think that if you were to, let's say you just started the program really recently and you're charging, half of what this calculator is suggesting, and you were like, okay, I'm going to immediately just jump in and charge whatever prices are here, that can actually be really dangerous, because if you don't have all of your foundation set up with great retention and the demand and your markets, everything is not there, then it's going to be really challenging, and you will potentially lose a lot of clients, which we don't want. So I would not necessarily go off of what you should be charging, right? I think it is a suggested price. The goal is to get you there. The goal is definitely to get you there, because if you typed in your information here correctly, then these are the prices that your market could handle, that the demand that you have could handle. So we want to get you to that place. We just don't necessarily want to do it all at once, because like I said, you want to make sure all those factors, those foundational factors are there. Now she said she's booked out 1 to 2 weeks, which is fantastic. We want to see that a little bit more. We want to see more like 3 to 4 weeks fully booked out. And then I don't think you mentioned, Christina, how many new guest requests you were getting, but we really want to make sure that you have at least 3 new guest requests per month, if not more, so that we know that there is an influx of people coming in they're wanting to see you. Because as you raise your prices, you are going to naturally have attrition, right? Or you're going to naturally have people fall off. So people that are in your base clientele, when you raise your prices, they are going to walk out. And so you want to have this like little pile of new guests that you can then feed into your clientele. So really important that we have that set up. I would love to see, again, that you are booked out just a few more weeks and that you have a few more guest requests. And then she had mentioned, this is kind of the second part of the question, my color prices are on point, but it sounds like her cuts and blow dries are the biggest issue. not charging for a blow dry. How many, can you guys just type it in the chat if this is you? And there may not be anyone in the room, but I know a lot of people who had not been charging for blow dries, or who do not include blow dries with their services. My personal thought on this is I think that everybody should receive a blow dry, especially when they're getting, well, really with cut or color. Natalie says guilty. I love it. I love the honesty. Yeah, I think, you know, the reason really is, number one, it's insurance. It's insurance for you, because if you do a color and you don't blow dry them, how do you know that you didn't get, you know, a hot spot, or you didn't get a little, you know, something funky going on in the color, or the tone is right. Yeah, Isabella said mine's included. All my cuts are finished after drying. Exactly, Meta. So if you're doing cuts and you leave with they leave with their hair wet, how can you possibly go in and refine it? There's just no way. And it's important for us to do that so that you will have fewer redos. So it's insurance for us. And then it's also for your guest. They're going to feel so much better about their cut and color if they're leaving with a blow dry, right? That's a huge thing. You'll be able to take photos for your work. There's endless reasons. So if you're not currently including the blow dry, or doing a blow dry, kind of making it mandatory, I would absolutely add it to all of your services. And here's the thing, we have to charge for it. We have to charge for blow dries. So I want to show you, I want to kind of do a little refresher here on how do we add a blow dry to the service menu. And again, I'm speaking only to my a la carte peeps, because if you're doing an hourly or a session rate, you're just going off of time, right? But if you're offering any sort of a la carte services, you're adding every single little thing up, and that's including blow dry. The blow dries are not already just built into any of these color services or cut services. You have to add it on top of it. So when we're looking at cuts, pretty easy and straightforward. You can see here, like this haircut only, no styling. That's obviously the price without blow drying. But if you wanted to do it with blow dry, it's just this one here, haircut with styling. Consider how much time it actually takes you for the consultation, the cut, the wash, the blow dry, the finish, all of it. What is that timing? And that's going to populate here. And this doesn't include any product costs, because typically there are no product costs. Maybe you have like shampoo, but that's sort of built in more on like your back end expenses versus something you're sort of charging on the front end to your clients. Now, when it comes to color, I'm just going to go down here as my example. So like a root touch-up, no ends refresh. This is just a root touch-up, right? All that this timing is showing is the consultation and the application and the processing. So it does not include a wash and blow dry, a haircut, anything on the back end. It's just the consultation. How long does it take you to apply, and how long does it process for? So you're selecting that time, and here's your suggested price. So then you have kind of we have three options on top of that. So one option is to come over here and select blow dry with color. And we get asked all the time, like, oh, look, ooh, it has like a little thing here. I've never noticed that. It says you'd include this for guests who don't receive a cut or style service. I've never seen that before, you guys. I don't know if you have, if you clicked on that, but there you go. We learned something new every day. Okay, so this blow dry with color, essentially what this is for, there were stylists that had told Britt, like, hey, I don't do a haircut after the root touch up. For some clients, I don't necessarily go through and like round brush. I'm not finishing with a curling iron. I'm just doing like a very quick power dry, what I call a power dry, right? And it doesn't take me very long. It takes me like 15, 20 minutes max. If that's the case, then this is the price for you. So maximum that this should take is like 20 minutes. And be really honest with yourself. If you're like, well, it usually takes me more like 30 or more minutes, because sometimes I'm doing iron work and this and that, this is not the right option for you. This is going to be for those like, you know, regular guests coming in every 4 to 5 weeks or something and getting a root touch up, and you're just giving them a quick power dry and like letting them out the door. So you would tack on this price to this price and get your total suggested price. If you are someone who does a full shampoo style, your option is to add on this right here and to really think about how long does it take me to shampoo, to blow dry. Maybe you want to incorporate any sort of iron work on top of that. you would add this price. You could also say, you know what, I'm going to keep it at 30 minutes. And then I'm going to add on this as ironing time, but it doesn't really make a difference, right? I would just put the full time that it's going to take you here. And that's your price. So you can see here, this is 67 versus 45. It's a good difference, and it's based on that time that she's taking. And then the third option is to do haircut with styling. So if you're going to do a root touch up with a haircut and a blowout, you would tack on this price to your root touch up no ends refresh. So I just wanted to show you kind of the 3 ways that you can add on a blow dry to the colors, and then how to do it for a cut. Now she's saying, I have not been charging at all for the blow dry. So let's say, for example, I'm just going to use Philomena's as an example. Let's say she's been charging $150 and just eating the cost of that blow dry. So suddenly raising all the prices by like $47, $48 is quite a large jump, right? And like we had said earlier, she's not really ready potentially for a price increase because she's still at that only booked out 1 to 2 weeks. I'm not sure how many new guest requests. So since she's not in that position to do necessarily a full price increase, really what we're wanting to do is to, this is kind of an example of bundling in a way. We're trying to unbundle and sort of ensure that she's getting paid for her time for doing that blow dry. So I might suggest for Christina that she does this in a couple of steps. So perhaps we end up doing a, $15 or $20 increase on all of your services. And you just let your guests know that, you've been doing the blow dry, including the blow dry for the last however long. But today, moving forward, you will be charging the additional amount of 20 something dollars or whatever it is for a blow dry finish, and just letting the clients know and being transparent with them in person if possible. And then maybe in another like 4 to 5 months, doing another increase so that we can slowly get you to the point where you are charging fully for your blow dries. So I would focus your attention there and getting your blow dries all taken care of, because that's probably affecting every single one of your services, your colors, your cuts. I would do that first before considering doing any sort of increase on any of the other services. Your color services also, it sounds like they're already on point. So let's get you up to that point. And this is great for any of you that are like, yep, I'm still under, and I know that I need to get everything up. How do I do that? I think it's about making a plan for the future. I like to call this like your short-term and your long-term pricing goals. So if your long-term pricing goal is to increase your income by 20% in a year, oftentimes we'll kind of make these financial goals, which is fantastic. And I want you to do those things, but we have to think about like, what are the actual steps that we're going to take to get you there? And it starts with the short-term goal. So her short-term goal, for example, is that we are going to do, let's say, I'm just making this up, but we're doing the $20 increase on blow dries. And then in another 4 months, we're going to do another $20 increase until we're at the point where we're charging for the blow dry. Then in another 4 months, we're going to do one larger price increase of 15% or something like that. And then, so kind of coming up with like, what is the very short-term goal? And then what are the goals every maybe 3 to 6 months over the next year in order to get you to that larger goal? Otherwise, if we just have that sort of arbitrary goal of saying, well, I want to double my income by next year, you can do that. You can absolutely 100% do that, but we have to think about what are the steps that it's going to take and put it on your calendar. Put it on your calendar for 4 months from now that says, check my pricing calculator, update the numbers that are on there, do a $20 price increase on this service or a 20% price increase on this whatever other service. And these are the weeks that I'm going to be telling my clients about my price increase. Put it on your calendar, because if you don't, what'll happen is 7, 8 months goes by and you're like super frustrated because you're doing all these services and you're burnt out and nobody's paying enough money and you're not getting paid enough. And so you want to make sure that you've set yourself up for success. So that's what I'm going to leave you with today on our pricing Q&A is I want to encourage you to really think about those short-term and long-term goals with your pricing. I want to encourage you to utilize this calculator. I know that it can sometimes be a challenging tool, but I think that Britt and I talked about this yesterday, like 98% of the people we've ever worked with on this calculator worked perfectly for them. There are the few outliers that like maybe their business is just so booming that like it just didn't quite fit into the calculator, but this is such a great tool. Remember that it's not an exact science. So suggested pricing, you don't ever have to feel like, well, the calculator says I have to charge exactly $70.93, so I should charge that. It's a tool to look at to understand what you could be charging on a sort of per hour basis based on the market that you're trying to serve, right? Which is this factor one, and the demand on your time, which is really important. If we're setting these like, again, arbitrary pricing, where we're going in and saying like, I want to make a certain amount of money per year and I'm just going to set the prices based on that. That's not going to help us in the long run, because we want to make sure that the prices we set are really there in order to match our market and our demand. Natalie says, I'm in Thriver's method, but now when I try to get on the pricing calculator, it won't let me use the password provided. It says Thriver's only resource. How can I access this? Ooh, if you have a question, Natalie, I think we have some team members in here. We'll get back to you. Or you can always email support at brittseva.com, and we can get back to you and give you a link to your calculator. But that is a little bit strange. You should be able to access it from your Google Drive, but sometimes it gets a little wonky. So we're happy to help you with that. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I have absolutely loved our time together. Thank you, Philomena. I appreciate all of you taking the time out, and I cannot wait to see you over in our Thrivers groups. See you later. Have a great day.